Hey, it's your girl Carla Renata, aka the Curvy Film Critic. I have a special guest in studio with me, and it's not a human. Want to find out who it is? Stay right there.
You're tuned into Black Hollywood Live, the world's first digital broadcast network devoted entirely to urban entertainment and pop culture. Tune in right now.
Hey, people. It's your girl Carla Renata, aka the Curvy Film Critic, for episode 65. Ooh. Who is this sitting on my shoulder? It is Giggle McDimples, child. Let's see if she's excited to be here with me. What she got to say about that?
Funny, but no.
Oh,
Sorry.
she is Shady Boots. Let me put her down. So welcome back for everybody that has been here before. Welcome back for those of you tuning in for the first time. This is the Curvy Critic with Carla Renata. We talk about films, we review them, and I give you a little news and some interviews along the way. I wanted to start out talking about the AFI Doc Film Festival because that's wrapping up as we're speaking. I literally was supposed to be there, but circumstances beyond my control prevented me from going. So, having said that, I did get a chance to talk to a couple of people. I spoke with Yugu, who is the director of, Lord, what is the name of the movie? The director of A Woman's Work, the NFL cheerleader problem.
Woman's worth.
No, it's a woman's work. The NFL cheerleader problem, and was trying to get that interview ready for you today, but technology was betraying me today. So that interview you will see up later on the site. But the interview I do have for you, which you are going to be so excited about, is one with Janice Engel. Now, last week I talked about Molly Ivins, the documentary about her, Raise Hell, The Life and Times of Molly Ivins. And this week I was able to catch up with the director, Janice Engel. We had so much to talk about in regards to Molly, her ideology, and how this doc came to be. So why don't you take a little listen to that right now? Hey. Here she come. This is the director of my favorite documentary going to AFI Doc's, Raise Hell, The Life and Times of Molly Ivins. How are you, my dear?
I'm wonderful, and thank you for that wonderful intro. Wow.
You deserve all of that. You really do. Molly Ivins is talking about, through clips in this documentary, the same freaking issues that we're dealing with right now. Mostly the fact that our First Amendment is kind of up for grabs right now. And I love how much journalism has shifted since the time she came onto the scene in the late 60s with her column and making all these TV appearances to what it is now. It's much more digital. How do you think, if she were alive today, would have adjusted to the way journalism and the ways that news is disseminated mainly by Twitter is happening today?
Molly Ivins was Twitter ready back in the 80s. She said, I'm not anti-gun, I'm pro-knife. We had a local congressman here, that man's so dumb, his brain, that I think we're going to have to water him twice a day. She also said about Dan Quayle, I swear if you put that man's brain in a bumblebee, it would fly backwards. She said so many one-liners. And so in the Culture War speech in 1992, the Republican convention, Mr. Buchanan had a speech. Molly said about that speech, I'm sure many of you were dismayed about Mr. Buchanan's speech. And personally, I think it probably sounded much better in its original German. How do I think she would be now? I think she would be just absolutely brilliant. And I think that her comments would be so acerbic. She's a satirist. She would go after the jugular and take immaculate aim. So her knife would go in and you wouldn't even feel it. She would have, like I said, dined out on He Who Shall Not Be Named, the Orange Cheeto in the White House. She would have dined out on him for breakfast, and I think she would have gotten his goat.
I love that you called him the Orange Cheeto, honey. I call him Mango in Chief.
My big moniker is He Who Shall Not Be Named.
Yeah, he's a hot mess. I don't even want to give him any airtime. This played at Sundance, and I'm so sorry that I missed it there. I love the fact that you have a tendency to lean toward people in your filmmaking that are unapologetically themselves. You did a doc on Jackson Brown called Going Home, and you're doing Molly Ivins. What is it about these types of people that draws you to them? And also why you did a biopic type of documentary on Molly Ivins as opposed to just a straight up documentary?
I'm always attracted to outsiders, and I'm always attracted to those who have the courage to speak truth to power and truly stand up for those. I think those roots come from who I am. I'm an outsider. No matter how much I've always wanted to belong, I never have. The film business is like high school, and it's like kind of makes me bristle at times. But it's that being able to really unabashedly speak truth. It takes a certain kind of maverick, and that spirit is so important, because otherwise, when you don't speak truth to power, when you don't stand up for those who don't have a say, we all get trampled on. All of our rights get trampled on. It's so in my being, who I am. So it's funny, when I started doing Molly, there's so many parallels that I found about, both bucking patriarchal authority. And Kay Northcutt says in the film, Molly basically, hated anyone who would kick a cripple. I was always the kid who would befriend the other kid in the playground, usually a girl who was overweight, that everybody would make fun of, and I would go out of my way to be her friend. I would go out of my way to be the first person to take a new kid who came to school and show them around. So that's in me, that sense of unfairness. I hate injustice. I hate unfairness. I hate unfairness.
I'm right there with you on that page. The thing that I love about the AFI Doc Film Festival, and I said that this is one of the reasons I like to go there, is that it totally focuses completely on documentary film, which is totally my jam. One of my favorite things, because I feel like is historical cinema. You always walk away learning something new about a person in America or not in America that you didn't know before, or an event. It's just historical cinema from my point of view. More often than not, at least 2 or 3 of the documentaries that screen there end up either getting nominated for an Oscar or winning an Oscar. Earlier this year, it was Period, End of Sentence. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed for Molly Ivins, because I think she deserves it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. The timing couldn't be better as we are going into the swing for the next big election, and this film is a call to action. It will hopefully spur her beloveds, her constituency, but all their children and grandchildren, get the word out, millennials. Is somebody in, I think, the Austin American Statesman or the Austin Chronicle said this is a gift to the online generation. Molly is quippy. She's brilliant. And whenever I show it to my students who are millennials, they're blown away. And I teach students from all over the world. They're blown away. Who is she? How can we go see her? And they're shocked when I say, she passed away in 2007. But her words are relevant. And they say, yeah, what she's talking about is happening right now.
It surely is. Speaking, and I'm glad you said that, because one of the things that she brought up is that we're living in a time where politicians are engaging in legalized bribery. And that's one of her terms. She calls it legalized bribery. How do you think that Molly Ivins would have reacted to the Me Too movement?
That's an interesting question. I think that she would come out swinging. I think she would personally, because she grew up as a child of oil and gas privilege in River Oaks, and that her father was the general, was the patriarchal authority, and she bucked it every step of the way. Are you kidding me? I think she would totally bean into going after the patriarchy. It's time. It's time. And personally, my take, I think if Molly were alive, we would have been probably pretty good buds, because her friends are very warm and loving and such a reflection of her. But I think we would have gone to town on the toppling of particularly the white male patriarchy. I mean, all of this that's going on is the last gasp of the white male patriarchy, because they feel it. They're being bred out of the gene pool. Because younger generations don't care. They are mixing. They're much more fluid. And that's a real threat.
It really is. And I don't think they understand what really is at stake.
People don't talk to each other. I mean, they don't read. They don't. And I think there will be, I think a backlash is coming. I really do. I also think millennials are waking up. I think Parkland is a movement, not a moment. I think they are definitely waking up, because they're being handed a pile of shit.
Yeah.
And they can't afford to live on their own, they can't even afford to have a normal, starter apartment in major cities. It's astonishing, the level of greed. So I do think that the pitchforks are raised. Yeah, the haves and the have-nots. And unfortunately, you destroy the middle class, you destroy the democracy. A healthy middle class is a healthy democracy.
Absolutely.
Robert Reich has said that numerous times, and he's done this on his speeches on Facebook.
Absolutely. I wanted to swing it back around to the music.
Well, thank you for that. Music is a very, very big part of all my films. And I've made a lot of music documentaries. Music is the soundtrack to your life. If I can get the audience to connect because it's a personal thing through the music. I started thinking about the music when I started this 6.5 years ago. I I have these files and I collect, because as I was also, a director, editor, and I've always need music. I need music. It gives a scratch. So I had tons of Texas-centric scratch music, and that's what I wanted, and that's what I got. I put that out there. I had friends saying, listen to this, because I've made lots of music docs. I had a couple of friends who are total audiophiles and would send me really great stuff that maybe I never heard. I knew I had to have Booker T and the MGs. I couldn't afford to have Green Onions, one of the greatest songs ever written, but I got a Booker T song in there, which is fantastic. To me, it's the soundtrack to your life, and if I can connect you through the music, because that song was something you heard coming up or whatever it was, you're emotionally going to automatically be connected to the music. And Molly was Texan, and so I think having a Texas-centric soundtrack was really important, including my composer. So Ian Herbert is my music supervisor, and he liked to say kick ass and took names and found me stuff to replace scratch music. That is fantastic. But the composer, Ethan Grushka, has been named the singer-songwriter of his generation. He's got 3 albums out. He's brilliant. He and his sister had a traveling band. They toured. He has done composing for me. I have a Holocaust education program, and he and another writing partner did original cues for us for What We Carry, my Holocaust education program. He has in his DNA. He comes from I'm not going to say who, but people can look up who Ethan is. He comes from a long line of, I would say, brilliant composers. He is brilliant.
I am fascinated now. Now I have to find out who Ian's lineage is. You've got me all intrigued.
Ethan Grushka.
I'm going to look him up. I've told people my opinion about why they should watch Raise Hell, The Life and Times of Molly Ivins. But for those people that didn't hear that, for those people who are just tuning into this conversation, what would you, as the filmmaker, want to tell people the major reason why they need to check this documentary out, especially when it's released on Magnolia Pictures later on this year?
So my first thing would be to say, how many documentaries make you laugh? Not many. We all need to laugh. We need to laugh because Molly was wildly funny. She was incredibly brilliant, and she used her humor to, as Jim Hightower didn't make the cut, but Jim Hightower said, Molly knew that humor was the door key to the brain, that you could unlock that little door to get people to really listen to you. And when people do, we're so polarized right now, when people can find a common ground, and, the left and right loved her. They loved if you were in a column, it meant you were worth writing about. People love being skewered by Molly, and she used the humor to bridge the divide. And we need that. We need to bridge the divide in this country because we're not listening to each other. And we need to come back to the table and really find the common ground. We have much more in common than one would think. People need to see that because I think Molly's message is that. I also think that she was a First Amendment warrior, and her overriding message is that, it's up to us. It's up to us to do the heavy lifting. No one's going to do it for us. You must get out there. You must bang your pots and pans. You must go and knock on doors. You must engage in conversation with people who don't agree with you and find the common ground to get people to vote. We are in a situation where we have a demagogue who's very dangerous, and there are corporate powers who are supporting it, even though they know it's not right. I truly believe that. But the greed is so deep-rooted. And we are much bigger than those few people who have that power. And it's the people who don't vote is why this happened. So the overriding message is vote. Yes, we have a two-party system. It's a republic. It doesn't always work, but it's our system. And we must all take part in civics. They don't teach civics anymore in school. I'm hoping that this film will become it's going to have an educational platform, not only for journalists and journalism, but also for civic responsibility. It is up to us. It's we the people.
That is beautifully said. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to speak with me about this documentary. I feel like it's so very, very important and very timely, as you said. For those people listening, please, if you are in the DC area, go get in that standby line and try to get a ticket, honey, because I promise you it will be worth it. And if you are not in the DC area, look for the release date for Raise Hell, The Life and Times of Molly Ivins by Janice Engel, being released by Magnolia Pictures later on this year. Thank you, Miss Janice.
Thank you so much, Carla. This is thoroughly enjoyable. And people can go to our website, www.mollyivinsfilm.com. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We will basically give all announcements of what's coming. We are going to be in the New York City area for one more festival in mid-July. It's called 51 Fest. That is kind of what's going on. It's going to be out and about in a theater near you sometime before the end of the year.
Great. Thank you, Janice. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Carla. Have a great day.
You too, my dear. I loved talking to Janice Engel, and thank you once again for taking time out of your schedule to chat with me. She's such an intelligent woman. I love, in particularly, speaking with female filmmakers. And I said last week that AFI Docs is one of my favorite film festivals to attend because documentaries are like my jam. But without going on to the next subject, let me shout out my people in the chat room, Michael B. and Jenna James. I switched the time on y'all, and y'all still showed up for a sister. So thumbs up and power to the people. Thank you so much for doing that. And I love the fact that you guys ask me questions while the interviews are playing. So let me just go back and address that real fast. You wanted to know when it was playing. Janice said at the end of the interview that the film will be coming out sometime this fall before the end of the year, just in time for the elections. It's going to be released by Magnolia Pictures. That was announced during the week that it got distribution by Magnolia Pictures right before the AFI Docs Festival started. So that was good. Yay! So be on the lookout for that. It is a really, really good documentary. It's right on time, too. Right on time, and you are going to love, I'm telling you, you are going to love Molly Ivins. She is the bomb.com. I also wanted to say that Jenna and Michael were both saying that, we're living in a time right now where people are so sensitive, and we're living in that digital time where people are getting their news on Twitter and online. So a lot of the newsstands and things closed down, and we don't have those journalists, those pundits like Molly Ivins. We have them kind of sort of digitally in the form of like Rachel Maddow or Samantha Bee and people in that kind of lane, but I don't think any of them really kind of hold the candle to Molly Ivins. Now, let's see what Giggle McDimples thought. Let me see what she thought.
Not today, silly.
Oh, okay. Well, she clearly doesn't want to be bothered. All right, but before I move on to the next interview, which is with Allie Mackey, who played Giggle McDimples, if you are on YouTube right now, please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel, The Curvy Critic, or subscribe to Black Hollywood Live and The Curvy Critic Show. I would really, really appreciate it. If you're listening via iTunes or Spotify, give me the 5 stars and give me a little comment and, show me some love. I really would appreciate it. And I love when you guys support me, and I will support you right back. Moving on. Allie Mackey. Allie Mackey is an Asian sister she is the warmest, kindest, most excitable person I've ever met. She's like genuinely a ray of sunshine. And earlier this week, some digital journalists were invited to have a little conversation with her, myself included. So I cut some stuff together so that you could hear what she had to say about representation in a Pixar film as an Asian woman, being the smallest animated character in the Pixar franchise, and something special about that nail art that she has on. So we're going to listen to that right now.
Saying this is like the best junket ever because everyone's so nice and like excited to be here. It's awesome.
As I shove food in my face,
Do it, girl. You got to. The first thing I said when I went to the very first session, because I didn't know that much. Okay, is there something you guys want or need from me specifically, like higher or lower? Do you want a character voice? And they were like, no. They're like, nothing. We just want you to be 100% you. For every Pixar movie, we go through great lengths to make sure we just cast the heart and soul and personality of the character. So already I just felt like so free in that moment to just be myself and play and be different versions of her. It's the best job I've ever had because they were like, all right, let's take this line to a level 10. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best job in the world. Like most times people are like, can you do less? Can you be less? Can you be quieter? And then I was like, okay, great. So I did the line and then they're like, that was amazing. They're like, now let's take it to a level 12. And I was like, yes, I've just unlocked my true potential. So, and that was like how much fun we had. It was just going balls to the wall, but then, still having the emotion behind it. It was so much fun.
Can we talk about how you're feeling on the inside about animating a voice for Disney Pixar? Let's just talk about that for a second.
Can we talk. I mean, I don't know how to process it yet. Like, I'm still just every day. Everyone's like, how did you not talk about it for 3 years? And I was like, because honestly, I didn't believe it was true. From day one, I just said, this has got to be a prank. Something's going to go wrong along the way. Because, I mean, you know how these projects are. You never know if you're going to make it into the final edit of the film. I remember at the after party of the premiere, the Pixar one, I was able to talk to Bob Pauly, who he's like iconic. He's been from day one of the animators. And he said over the last like 6 years, they've had so many different characters and iterations. There was so many different storylines that got dropped along the way. So in that moment, I again just felt so incredibly lucky to even make it into the film, and then to be such an incredible new character within that is mind-blowing. I can't believe we're here. So basically, you'd go into the thingy and I wouldn't know anything. Like, they don't send you anything beforehand. There's no scripts. I didn't know anything that was going on, which I think is so wonderful because it really takes you back to the main reason why we love performing and using your imagination. Everything is imagination based, and really all you're getting is they give you like this the scenes, they have like thick pieces of like almost like cardboard ones where you know there's only one copy, and our script coordinator Slansky will put them up on the thingy and you'll do it, and they'll take them down and like put them in the vault because there's only like one copy of each scene. So that was kind of how we operated. Wow. So everything was just like, here's what's happening, Woody's doing this and this and this, okay, now go. And so it really is just trusting your first basic instincts and what you're feeling in that exact moment. And I think it's cool because Cooley actually told me that 85% of what is Giggle McDimples in the movie was from our very first recording session in the first 30 minutes of that recording session. Wow. To me, which meant a lot because it really meant that my first instincts and what my first kind of feelings were for the character were what were really special, so that was cool. I keep telling them, like, you guys know you hired an ultimate fangirl. Like, I don't know if this is gonna be good or bad for you guys, but like, I'm gonna be all over just like freaking out every single day. I mean, to be the tiniest character to exist in the universe is really awesome, and then to be an Asian American, the first ever Asian American female within this universe is so incredible. To be a woman of color in this universe is so incredible. To be the new character in 4 is just, I mean, it's mind-blowing to me at every level. And I was kind of the age group that directly aligned with 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I was like 9 when the first one, and then high school, and then college, and now 4 is just me as an adult. So it's really, really special. I'll go into Walmart and buy the cheese, like, honestly. That was what made me cry, though, shockingly, was when I saw her on Baby Bell cheese. I was like, wait, what's happening? And why am I having, like, a visceral emotional reaction to this? She has her own emoji, this is crazy! And it looks so good. I actually zoomed in and then gave it to this nail artist, and he like drew the emoji.
That. I was going to ask you about that. I was like,
you did? Yeah, because you recognized
like this,
yeah.
and I was like, she's got her girl.
It was actually really hard, and he did his best. It's a little bit, gloopy, but that makes it more special.
I love the fact that you did that. What did you feel like the first time you saw the rendering of what the animated version of you was going to look like?
Oh, the animated. Well, the first session I went to, they were like, show her the animatic. And, I love it because they're all so excited to show me everything. I'm like, yeah, okay, great. The first thing they showed me was a little, thing of her just moving around. It was just her. There was no, scenery. It was just, a white background. And they had dubbed my lines from Wrecked, the show I was on at that time, onto her thingy. So it was just so weird because it was this other character that I played and now merged with what would be Giggle McDimples. And when I saw that, it was again very freeing because I said, oh, they just want me to talk as me. They didn't need any crazy character or anything. I could just be myself. So that was the first time I had seen her. And at that time, she was still in a little pink and purple dress.
Oh, a pink and purple dress.
Yes. She was not.
So she evolved into an officer with shades.
Yeah. Yes, the shades. Yes. And some shade.
That's what I was going to say. She's wearing shades and she's giving shade.
She's giving shade. By the way, the doll is very shady. Because if you ask, we did another thing and we were like, hey, are you excited for Toy Story 4? And she goes, haha, not today. It was hilarious. And then we were like, let's try it again. We were like, you excited for Toy Story 4? And she goes, that's a negative. And we're like, oh my gosh, you're so shady right now. Stop. You need to chill. But she's not afraid to say what she means. So at that time, the very first iteration was, I actually also got this black notebook that you open and it felt like a Pixar CIA notebook, and you just open it and it had drawings of her in all different different ways. But she had a little pink bow on and a pink and purple dress at that time. Oh, wow. she was still the same like feisty spirit. And then over the months, I remember I came back and they were like, hey, so we have a surprise for you. And I was like, what is it? What could be more amazing than this? And they're like, she is now a cop, and we've given her a job, and she's the police chief of Minneapolis. And I was like, that's honestly the most perfect way. Which I was like, tell me more about Minneapolis, because that place sounds amazing. Like I'm trying. I know, where is it? What is it? How do we get there? And I've been telling them we got to do Minneapolis, the spin-off. And we imagine like she has a little like trench coat or something, and she's just like solving crime. And she's on the beat. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, you know.
Oh, look at you getting all emotional.
I know.
Oh, your little eyes are welling up.
I know. Well, how can they, I mean, how can they not? I'm so proud of this film, and like, it means so much to me personally. Amazing. So I think like as someone who is an Asian American female growing up in a world where we didn't have that many strong representations in TV and film and, you know, in magazines, I think Toy Story for me resonated so much because these characters are without borders and barriers. Like, you could see yourself in Rex, you could be RC, you could be Slinky Dog, like, you could be any of these things, and I think that's why it resonated so much with me. And I think why it resonates so much with a lot of people.
I feel like the theme for the film is friendship. How if you truly have a friend, that friendship never really goes away, no matter how many miles or distance separates you.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that particular theme within this story and dealing with toys? Because growing up as somebody as a military brat, that was real for me. I always was in a situation where I was like, do I fit in? Am I going to make new friends? Or my old friends going to stay in contact with me? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. I mean, growing up, I was a very, very shy girl, and performing was my outlet. So friendship has always been something that I kind of struggle with, only because it's hard to make friends when you're really shy and you're insecure about who you are. So now growing up and finding the confidence to find these friendships, especially female friendships. I mean, Asian American Girl Club is like where I have found so much empowerment in using my voice, because I feel like when you do have that sisterhood of that female connection, it fills a hole in your heart that nothing else can. So I think that's why it's so meaningful, especially to see these strong female friendships on board. I mean, they don't need each other, but they do, you know, at the same time. So I think that's why it's really special to me. Asian Americans have had a momentous year, and it's been very exciting to watch, and that's a lot of why I created Asian American Girl Club, because I knew there was all these girls all over the country that were the only ones in their whole school or the whole town, and felt like they didn't have anyone out to reach out to, and I felt like this was like the web that I wanted to create those lines to those girls and say, like, I totally understand how you feel, and I resonate with your story just as much as you do with mine. And so I think we're making amazing strides, and the more different and varied and complex and flawed characters we can represent, the more it's going to impact and shape culture. I'm very excited that Giggle will be one of them. She inspires me, so. It's been such a long journey for me, because I think because I started when I was so young, I was instantly just so boxed in at such a young age. I mean, I was 14 and I was basically told, you can only be this or this. So I felt like in that moment at 14, I lost my identity. And so much of my career has been trying to rebuild that and trying to find it. And I think what's so great about this film is we are able to give that to these young people at a much younger age, so they don't have to go through this. And of course, they're going to go through the ups and downs struggles of finding their own personal identity. But I think for me, finding that my self-worth mattered just as a human, like as obviously a woman of color, but just as a woman of any race or just any gender, it doesn't matter. I think that's been the greatest lesson for me, is I found a lot of confidence and a lot of identity through just being in this film, because it's basically saying that someone like you matters, girls like you matter. And I'm excited for the next generation, because they're going to be 10 years old and they've got their dolls and they're like, I could be a police chief, obviously. Why would you think that I couldn't be? And I love that. It's like, wow, where did you get your confidence, you know? But that's what these characters do for them. It just creates their new normal. It is their reality of, I'm growing up in a world where women are police chiefs, where women are unafraid to say what they want. Duh, like, duh, Allie, why don't you just say how you feel? So to have their confidence would be awesome, and I'm working towards that every day, but doing films like this really helps me personally There's something called the Vogue Sheet, which is very exciting. Basically, it's just you do 100 different noises in 3 minutes. It's like small laugh, big laugh, slight chuckle, big chuckle, like surprise chuckle, like effort, small effort, big effort, you know, and that's fun. So we did like so many different variations. There's like extended laugh, you know, like short laugh. We did all the variations. The only reason why I'm in this film is because I woke up one day and I said, I have to make this skit for no reason. And I made it on a Saturday with no budget, my dog, my nephew, and my fiance's little brother. And we just went out in my neighborhood and made this thing that it was just the way I viewed the world personally. And I didn't think anyone would resonate with it. It barely got any views. But one of the views was the head of casting at Pixar, and that is 100% why I'm in this film. And they said they use YouTube as a resource because they're trying to find the most like authentically new stories and people and different variations of reality and how you see the world. So I would 100% say make your own content because it really does matter. And it doesn't matter if it gets 5 views or 100 million. If it even resonates with one person, then you know that you are moving things forward.
I love the fact that she did a video and put it on YouTube and hardly anybody saw it, and she ended up with a major animated feature film as a result of it. So the lesson in all of that is to not give up and not be all worried about the numbers. Don't be like, oh, nobody saw me today. Oh, it was 5 people. Yeah, it might be 5 people, but one out of those 5 people might change the trajectory of your life. So thank you, Miss Allie, for sitting down and talking to us. We adore you here at Black Hollywood Live. I understand you've been here before, but we love you here. Hopefully at some point in the future we can get you here in person. That would be fantabulous. But let me just talk about Toy Story 4 real quick. Toy Story 4 is produced by Pixar, which is a division of the Walt Disney Pictures Company, and it's directed by Josh Cooley. Because you heard Allie refer to Cooley quite a few times in the interview. She's talking about the director, Josh Cooley. Toy Story 4 had me laughing, but I did shed a tear toward the end, and I was not expecting to share. I was like, what is going on? Why am I crying at a cartoon? I could not handle it myself. I really could not. But it was hella funny. It's a huge lesson in friendship. The film starts with that song, You Got a Friend in Me. Yeah, I love that song. You got a friend in me. That's all I know. So that's all I'm going to be singing. But it starts with that song and it ends with that song. And it introduces all these different characters. Gabby, you think Gabby's going to be one thing, and she's voiced by Christina Hendricks, and she ends up being something else, and she ends up breaking your heart. There are characters voiced by Keegan-Michael Key and Jordan Peele. You know, now if Jordan Peele didn't have enough to do, he got an Oscar and he's doing horror films, and now he voicing animation. Child, I'm like, thumbs up to you, my brother. Make them ducats anywhere you can. But it's hilarious. It's funny. Forky, who's voiced by Tony Hale, is simply genius. What he does with just the sounds, because he says trash so many different ways, and it's so entertaining and so delightful. And it's more, I will say this, Toy Story 4, the kids will love it, but that ventriloquist thing, it might scare, it's a little creepy, it might scare them just a little bit. This version of Toy Story is a little more on the adult side, but I feel like kids will love it. There were kids in the theater with me, and they absolutely adored it. So Toy Story 4 is in theaters right now, produced by Pixar and directed by Josh Cooley. I saw a documentary, flipping back to the AFI Doc Film Festival. I saw a documentary called Toni Morrison, The Pieces I Am. And I saw it at Sundance initially. And I saw it again for AFI Doc Film Festival. And it is, first of all, let me just say, and I think I've said this before, Toni Morrison graduated from Howard University, and so did I. So I'm a huge Toni Morrison fan. I have all her books, first edition, hardcover with the flap. Like, I'm diehard like that. But I moderated a Q&A with the director, Timothy Greenfield Sanders. This film is also being produced by Magnolia Pictures. Magnolia been busy this year. And they gave me this little, you can't see it, but they gave me this little bookmark. And what was really interesting about this doc is that they fused artwork with Toni's face, and the artwork was used throughout the actual the film. And it was really genuinely, very geniusly used in that way. And in this film, me and Timothy, when we were at the Soho House last week, we were talking about Toni Morrison and the way she infused history, and he infused history into her book writing, and how they infused her history and the history of African Americans in this country into this documentary. It is a wonderful doc. It is so rich and it's so luscious, and it's just so much information in there to absorb and take in that you will really, really enjoy it. It is in a limited release right now. It was released on June 21st, but it goes nationwide on June 28th, which is coming up this week, which is why I want to tell you guys about it. So there's that. I also want to tell you about another film at the AFI Docs called Maiden. It is a documentary as well, because of course it's the AFI Docs Film Festival. And Maiden is a film that is directed by Alex Holmes. It is produced by Sony Picture Classics, and it's dealing with the Whitbread Round the World race, a sailing race that happens once a year. This particular documentary, Maiden, is named after the boat, or the ship rather, that the all-female crew, led by skipper Tracy Edwards, took around to compete in this race. They won the second and the third leg. They came in second for the first leg, or they may have come in second for the fourth, but I know they won the second and third leg for sure. But it was a really interesting thing, because actually I didn't know that much about sailing, and I didn't know about Tracy Edwards at all, and I was like, wow, girls are sailing around the world with an all-female crew. That's freaking awesome. But it wasn't awesome at the time, because sexism is real, and their constituents and the media made fun of them, didn't think that they were gonna get through a leg, let alone win a couple of legs or come in second. People were so enamored and so excited about them actually finishing the full 4 legs that there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of boats that came in with them as they were coming in for the final time. And it's a sight to behold. It actually brought tears to my eyes. It was really something. It was also something how the girls decided they were going to make fun of the people making fun of them. And at one point they sailed up in there in some swimsuits, because they were like, okay, so y'all gonna talk about us being girls and talk about how we're weak and we're this and that and the other. We just gonna wear some swimsuits and shut it down. And that's exactly what they did. I kind of loved them for that. It was hilarious. So funny. So that's Maiden by Sony Picture Classics, directed by Alex Holmes. You want to check it out. It is going to be in theaters a little later on, but it played at the AFI Docs Film Festival over this weekend. The festival actually ends today, June 23rd, but a lot of those documentaries, like I've said before, do come out and release at some point. So I will keep you apprised of when the next one is going to show up and where you can find it. I also want to tell you about another documentary. I'm like the documentary queen. One called Blue Note Records Beyond the Notes. It's directed by Sophie Huber, produced by Mirror Film. And it was part of the Dances with Film Festival here in Los Angeles, which is wrapping up. It's basically the history of Blue Note Records, which is a jazz label. And it talks about their artists, how the label came to be through these 2 German dudes. And it had artists on the label like Thelonious Monk, John Coltrane, Miles Davis. If you are a jazz music nerd or a jazz music geek, Blue Note Records Beyond the Notes is going to totally, totally be your jam. I promise you. Just to hit a couple of news items real quick. Oh, and one other documentary, sorry. Another documentary called Connected, the Joe Polish story. I wanted to say Polish, but it's polish, like polishing a table. It is produced by DNA Films and directed by Nick Nanton. Joe Polish is associated with this thing called the Genius Network. And honestly, the jury for me is still out with that one. I don't know how I feel about that one. I don't know how I feel about someone who makes money off of other people trying to move themselves along in their lane in a way where they can make more money and thrive a little better. That's basically how I feel about it. I didn't not like it. It just made me feel some kind of way. All right. Denzel Washington in the news. Denzel Washington was honored by the AFI, the American Film Institute, with an award this week. You can, if you have DirecTV or any of those streaming services, if you go to TNT, you can stream the replay of it there. It was really quite lovely. I'd never seen one where they had the person talk about themselves and then infused it a little here and there with other people talking about them as well. And Jennifer Hudson sings a version of "A Day Is Gonna Come," "Day Is Gonna Come," whatever that song is. She sings this song that's gonna make you want to go slap somebody, and it's gonna make you want to go slap her because she sang her face off. Yes, she did. Also, Denzel has been commissioned by the August Wilson Estate to produce his plays for the feature film realm. So the next one, he did Fences a couple of years ago, and now up is Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which he is teaming up again with Viola Davis, and he has Chadwick Boseman up in there too, and a couple of other people. So you might want to check that out. My film organization, AFCA, the African American Film Critics Association, the Online Association of Female Film Critics, and Time's Up have all teamed up together to try to make this whole diversity thing with film critics and females move a little quicker. So kudos. Thumbs up to AFCA and OAFFC. I'm a member of both. I'm really proud to be a member and proud that they are doing their thing. Ooh, honey, that was a lot. So I'm going to wrap it up. And what I'm going to tell you is next week, which is June 30th, I'm going to be back here talking about Yesterday. It's a film about this guy who ends up singing Beatles music, but he doesn't know, but other people don't know that who the Beatles are because he's from the future or something weird like that. I guess that's the best way to describe it. And I'm also going to talk about Spider-Man Far From Home, doing a little Spider-Man introspective with my girl Perry Nemiroff from Collider. So thank you guys so much for tuning in for this solo journey of the Curvy Critic with Carla Renata here over at Black Hollywood Live. Again, if you liked it, give me a big old thumbs up on YouTube. Give me some 5 stars over on Spotify and iTunes. And I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much. And until then, love, peace, and hair grease. Peace out.
On behalf of our BHL staff, we would like to thank you for tuning in to Black Hollywood Live, the world's first digital broadcast network devoted entirely to urban entertainment and pop culture. Check out our Black Hollywood Live YouTube page for even more great programming and amazing content. And be sure to subscribe and like our channel when you do. I'm your BHL host, Nakia Monet, and you can find me on all social media at Kiki Boom Boom or at Black Hollywood Live. Black Hollywood Live, Hollywood redefined.
The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.